Hello, everyone, and welcome into the crowded booth here on a Monday night. Bryce Koon, and it's just going to be me and Will Manis. Ralph might pop in. He literally might finish his route at some point and pop in, but we're going to talk college football week 11. Not so much some of the games, but we're going to take more look at the firings, some of the games, and then some of the storylines as we get ready. It's a loaded weekend. People think that we're getting close to the end of college football. Not really. We're just heightening into a different time period, different season of college football. That and more on tonight's episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Hello, everyone. Will Manis, Bryce Koon. Will, yeah, I went in the zoomed in version, mostly because Mercer Bears got a big win, might be going to the first ever FCS playoffs, and so I had to show off the logo. That's the only reason.
I hope so. They should have been in last year.
You know why you would like Mercer, Will? Is because they run a variation of Jamie Chadwell's offense and the option. And so you would lose your mind, especially if they play that. The FCS level's full of that stuff. But hey,
if you're in the Discord, you see I had to change my name.
That was amazing. That was just simply amazing. Hey, we got a lot to talk about. And I think, one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about tonight is, yes, we're going to discuss, the two of the biggest games that happened here in week 11. Yes, we're going to discuss, coaching firings. We're going to preview our top four, ours are very, very different, which is going to make for great conversation.
Good.
Not very, very different, but they're different in the least bit. We're not just going to be agreeing and moving on. So that's good at the very least. But we started out right here. The big news. Jimbo Fisher fired at A&M. Give me your initial thoughts when you saw this news break. I mean, you saw it on the timeline. We've expected it, I would say. Everyone's kind of said, oh, it's going to happen. But when it hit you, the notification on your phone, what was your immediate reaction?
My jaw hit the floor because I really did not expect them to make this move mid-season. But I don't know if you saw it, but at halftime of the game on Saturday, the athletic department, they flexed in the middle of that game. Did you see the giant check that they unveiled? They got $160+ million donation to the athletic department. So they got their money.
Poor timing.
Yeah, well, it was hilarious. And what makes it better is if the reports are true, they made this decision on Thursday at a what they call it, Board of Regents meeting.
Yeah.
So they made the decision Thursday, and then they just showed off that giant check, all that money they got. That was hilarious. But yeah, I can't believe it. I can't believe that they're paying him $75 million to walk away. I figured that they would at least wait till the season was over and go through the season. But there was no mitigating that buyout, so there was no need to wait.
Yeah, and I remember you and I had the conversation, I guess it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we kind of gave both sides to it. That amount you're going to have to pay whether he is on the sidelines or he is not there. So, I was watching, which if you're an A&M fan and you stumble across this, you probably have watched TexAgs before. To me, it's the leading content driver of what A&M wants to do, no matter what network you're talking about. They were talking about Billy Lucci, who's the guy that broke the news. He was talking about how there was a contingent of people saying one more year. And I get that and I understand that because different factors. And we're going to talk about this job, the money machine that A&M is. I understand that too. But Will, why do you think they made the decision here and now? Because yes, you beat up on probably the worst team in the SEC outside of Vanderbilt, 51-10. It was awful.
I would say the worst team in the SEC.
They're really bad. Vanderbilt might beat them. Vanderbilt might beat them. So, but your thoughts on this? I mean, why now? Why do you think they decided to make this coming off a win Sunday and just really drop the axe? 2 weeks left in the season. Portal opens up on the 4th, but the portal opened today for A&M players. We already saw one go in there. So your thoughts on this?
I think they just wanted to get ahead of everybody else. They looked around. They saw that nobody else had dropped the axe, so to speak, and they wanted to get ahead of it so they can officially talk to people. But they've been back channeling for months, maybe a year. They've been back channeling. But it was interesting. You say the one more year crowd. I would have been, if I was a Texas A&M fan, I would have been in that one more year crowd because you saw the offense was really starting to get going with Connor Wegman before he went down in that Auburn game. And I think if they have Wegman, they beat Alabama. I think Max Johnson really held them back. He's a really good quarterback, but he's just not as dynamic as Connor Wegman. I think one more year in that Jimbo Fisher / Bobby Petrino hybrid offense that they had, I think he would have done really well. But again, like their AD, it's Ross Bjork, right? Their AD now.
Yes.
There's been so many ADs staying in the SEC at different places. It's hard to keep them all straight. But he said it felt like the program was in neutral, and being an outside observer, exactly right. That's what it felt like. You knew the upside was there. You thought Jimbo Fisher could get them there, and I think, I was thinking about this earlier, trying to, like, if I was to put a tier list of coaches, like tier, A tier, I would say Jimbo Fisher is A tier, even though I said a couple weeks ago that he's 1-0. I still think he's a really good coach, really good recruiter. I think he could have gotten Texas A&M there, but they were stuck in neutral. And if you're stuck in neutral, especially in the SEC, and the SEC getting bigger, you're really going backwards. So they had to, they did it early so there would be no question about, are we actually going to fire this guy and hire this guy that we're talking to? They're going to hire the guy they're talking to.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, look, and we can talk about this job. I mean, I know you and I both enjoy watching Josh Pate, and I think he hit the nail on the head with this. Like, this is a top-tier job. This is
no doubt about it,
where you can go, and if you get an elite coach, they've had good coaches, and they've had great coaches. I mean, Jimbo Fisher is, when we look at the
Bear Bryant coached at Texas A&M. It was 100 years ago, but Bear Bryant coached at Texas A&M.
Very true. When you look at the body of work of what Jimbo Fisher does, I think we can say probably a better CEO and manager early on at Florida State than he was later at Florida State and in the College Station. It's an attractive job. I've seen some people down here. Dr. Bob's already said, Jeff Traylor would be an interesting option.
You know why Dr. Bob's saying that? He doesn't want Mike Elko to leave.
He doesn't. Yeah, he said right here, don't take Elko. Please, no. Mike Elko would be a home run hire program
absolutely
for A&M. But, look, you win 51-10. Will they promote not Bobby Petrino, not DJ Durkin, not even, who is the often, what's the guy that used to be the coach at Boston College?
Steve Adazio.
Steve Adazio.
I forgot
three former head coaches that they did not promote. So I think it shows the trust, and I can't remember the guy's name. Elijah something is the interim head coach for this. It shows the respect that they have, and apparently the players respect him. It's going to be a weird free-for-all. Like, it is going to be a weird free-for-all on the players in the portal. But I do agree with you. I think that this team was the same problems that were hurting them here this year have been hurting them for the past 6 years. So there's not a ton of growth. And like, we talk on our Georgia Tech show, the growing pains. It feels like it's been the same growing pains for 6 years. And so, and I will say this too. I don't think the second option, I do genuinely think that A&M is going to call Dan Lanning. I don't think
100%.
I think that you have to make that phone call.
I think Dan Lanning's your first call because you've got Mike Elko. You've got familiarity with him. Lanning has to be your first call, but he's going to be so tough to pry away. We saw Auburn. His name was out there early and often for that Auburn job. And Phil Knight, big Nike money in Oregon, worked really hard, gave up a lot of money to keep him there. I think he'll do it again, but I think that oil money is deeper than the Nike money. But what Lanning's built up there, and he's still building because he's, year 2? He's I think he's going to have them in the playoff. I mean, that's probably hinting at my top 4, but I think he'll have them in the playoff this year. And he's building something really, really good out there. And why come to the pressure cooker that is the SEC?
Especially when you're moving to the Big Ten, if you're at Oregon, and that's something too to watch. Another name that we can dive more into this, obviously, in future shows. Jonathan Smith from Oregon State, a team that's kind of been left for dry. This is his chance to move to big time football. I mean, really, when you think about this, with Jonathan Smith, do you want to be in the SEC or the Mountain West? Like that's kind of where you sit with this. And so I don't know, man. It's going to be really, really interesting to kind of watch this. I do think this, and we'll end the conversation here with talking about Jimbo Fisher. You got to make this hire within like 2 or 3 weeks. Portal
gotta make
officially opens on December 4th. You got to know, like within this week, who you're going to hire or who you're going to offer it to.
You got to do like Auburn has done multiple times. Auburn's done it more than once. 10 a.m. December 2nd, day of the SEC championship. Steal the headlines. Make the headlines ahead of the SEC championship because that's where you want to be. Yeah. So go ahead and make the headlines that day, no matter who it is, and it's got to be a big name. And I think they've got a couple big names lined up. I think it's going to be Brian Kelly to LSU type name, somebody that we really haven't heard of. I feel like Elko, if it's not Elko or Dan Laney, it's going to be somebody that nobody has said.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I mean, that one came completely out of left field. I texted because obviously LSU plays A&M in 2 weeks, setting up some stuff with them to do previews wise. And I just mentioned it, and they said they would not be surprised if Monday after the LSU game is when it's announced. And even if it is a name that is involved in the playoff, that A&M is going to say, hey, look, you got to come here now. Like in the day and age of college football, you've got to make that jump now. It's not something where you really can, we can keep quiet because we mentioned portal's already open for A&M for players to leave. It opens it for everybody on December 4th.
There's going to be major waves made across the country because of this Jimbo Fisher out and whoever the new guy is in, that comes in. I mean, there's going to be assistants moving from all over the place.
Yeah.
So this is going to be felt by everybody.
Take them, Josh.
One can hope. One can
hope. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to watch this coaching hire. And one, too, that we stay in the SEC West, Will, and we mentioned this earlier, Zach Arnett fired at Mississippi State. You and I were texting about this, and I texted our 24/7 guy, and I said, is there any chance? Because I was perusing kind of through the message boards over there and reading some of the stuff, and look, I think this is a situation where I do think Zach Arnett becomes one of the top defensive coordinator candidates, and I think he's going to get a good job somewhere. I even, mentioned in our Discord,
LSU.
Georgia Tech. Hey, LSU might want to take him. LSU might want to take him. It's interesting.
There's two other SEC defensive coaches that I think could be jumping to Georgia Tech for that DC job.
Ooh, we'll talk about that. That. Your thoughts on this, though? I mean, Arnett, this was always going to be a hard thing. And I think maybe it was understated how difficult this was going to be. I like their OC hire of Kevin Barbay. It just has not panned out. They didn't have Will Rogers. I mean, over the course of the final 5-6 games, you obviously got to see this team play Auburn, and it's just something where, Will, I don't know. I feel bad because Mississippi State is known for playing tough, hard-nosed football, and they're not going to win 10 or 11 games, but, man, they're going to make you work for it. And they're just getting destroyed by teams, no offense to your Auburn Tigers, who are barely bowl eligible.
Hey, look, that was 3 weeks ago when we weren't bowl eligible. Now we are. I mean, I feel bad for Zach Arnett. I really do. I mean, he takes over an impossible situation, taking over from Mike Leach. But, and you said it came from their 24/7 guy that he'd lost the locker room. I think that was pretty obvious the way they got blown out by Auburn. I mean, they kind of woke up in that second half against Auburn, but not really. I didn't even watch them against A&M. I feel like they just kind of laid down in that game because they really checked out. Once you lose the locker room, there's no coming back. They had to do it. Again, surprised they did it midseason because Mississippi State, you look at where they're at. I don't know that they gain a lot by go ahead and pulling the plug midseason with 2 games left. But, it's Mississippi State. They're just in a really tough position, and it's getting even tougher with the Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC. I really don't have any read on where they go because it's not a desirable job. I mean, I saw Dan Mullen was mentioned. Do they run it back to Dan Mullen? That would be – I mean, honestly, I think he's the best coach in program history. I mean, why not go back to him?
Yeah, you might be. I mean, Sylvester Croom was really good for them. He did some good things for the program. But you are right. You are right. I mean, I did want to list this out real quick because you mentioned maybe not where they're wanting to go in that kind of deal. Cooper Patania, 24/7 Sports. He tweeted this, and then I texted him about this. This is where he went. Willie Fritz at Tulane. That's not a bad. That's not. It wouldn't be the sexy hire.
I don't see Willie Fritz leaving Tulane for Mississippi State.
I don't think. I think that's kind of lateral.
If he was willing to go to Georgia Tech, why wouldn't he be willing to go to Mississippi State? Yeah. That's probably the logic there.
I want to get this comment real quick. Josh Starkville is just. I didn't like it. I was there. I didn't like it. Glenn Schumann from Georgia.
No.
That would be weird. Jeff Lebby from Oklahoma.
No.
Jamie Chadwell from Liberty.
Actually, maybe.
That would be interesting. John Sumrall from Troy. And Ralph's not here to defend it.
That's.
I'd make the call, man. I would make
Mhm.
the call. Back-to-back Sun Belt title appearances, potentially, if they can win, in December, first week in December, back-to-back Sun Belt title. Like, what else can you accomplish at Troy? Like
Honestly,
I mean, he's done.
don't tell
he's done
Ralph,
exactly.
but honestly,
Yeah, we're gonna, we'll talk about that.
and
I don't
I
know,
think
man.
Summerall is the type of guy that would fit at Mississippi State. That would be really good. He's a defensive-minded guy. He's going to build a strong defense. Because at a place like Mississippi State, you've got to have that, like an elite defense, to have a chance. I mean, Mullen is a one time ever having an elite offense there, and he didn't have.
And had the best quarterback in program history, obviously, too,
right?
Dak Prescott.
Yeah. So if you can build a defense with, I don't want to say lesser athletes. That's not the best way to put it, but without your 4 and 5 stars on offense, you have to have them. But on defense, you can build a defense with 3 and 4 stars, 2, 3 and 4 stars, and be competitive.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, you get a guy like Summerall in there who is, like you mentioned, hard nosed. Was under Mark Stoops for a little bit at Kentucky. Understands what you have to do to be able to recruit in the SEC. Has a footprint. I mean, like I know Ralph. It's a good thing Ralph's not on the show, but he would be able to bring the best talent that has eligibility from Troy with him too, and that would help in the short term of establishing the culture.
I mean, I know divisions are going away, but I've always viewed Mississippi State and Kentucky as pretty much the same. I like same level programs as in the SEC landscape anyway. They're both kind of on islands by themselves. I mean, they've been, lower half toward the bottom for most of our lives, and just now they're finding success. So I mean, he knows he was with Stoops at Kentucky and watched Stoops how he built Kentucky. He could do the same thing at Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State, and that's a really good point. You talked about what kind of job this is. If you put Mississippi State in the East over the past 10 years, I don't want to say they'd be a perennial 9 to 10 winner like, Kentucky
I don't
has,
think so.
But they would be 7 to 9 wins, and feel comfortable in that sense. And man, it's just been, like I said, I mean, look, I don't think Zach Arnett's a bad coach. This was this was the worst storm possible that hit. And I think it's credit to Mississippi State's athletic department of realizing it, like identifying, like you mentioned, we can't allow this to slip any further. Like Arnett's probably going to go get a big DC job somewhere and be good at that. But for our program, with what's coming to the SEC, we have to stay afloat because it's only going to get harder.
And when he got this job, I don't think there was anybody that was like, "Oh yeah, he's ready." I mean, he's ready to step in.
It was kind of just like a good feel-good story, and I hate to say that, but it really was.
Leach was really the OC. Arnett's been around. He's coached. I mean, he's young, but he's coached a long time. He was a DC for several years at San Diego State, so he's at least held that side of the ball.
Yeah.
And the players, they were obviously playing for him until Will Rogers got hurt and they started losing games and really struggling. So I really hate this for him. But like you said, he's probably going to end up being the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Before we kind of get into our recaps, Will, obviously kind of some of the smoke surrounding Sam Pittman as well, potentially being that third SEC head coach.
I wanted to talk about this one.
Yeah, and I don't even have a banner for this, but I'll make it while you talk about it. I mean, I want to say this. Sam Pittman, I think every single person can root for Sam Pittman. Like what he has had, it just has not worked out. Like it just hasn't worked out. They have fallen so far, Will, and I hate that because I think Sam Pittman loves Arkansas. Yeah, it's crazy, and I think it's one of those programs that wasn't built to withstand the portal with some of the talent that they had. But your thoughts on kind of what Arkansas might do?
And it shows that a program like Arkansas, one bad hire, he made a poor hire at offensive coordinator, hiring Dan Enos, didn't work out, and they've fallen so far. Losing Kendall Browse really killed him and cost his job. You said it. Will he be let go? Yeah. I mean, I think it's a decision. I think it's a done deal, but I did read that they're probably going to wait till December 1st when that buyout drops even lower, which is pretty savage. Wish Auburn would have done that for Malzahn, but it doesn't matter because now Texas A&M has the record for biggest buyout paid.
There you go. No more Auburn in the headlines.
This job I've thought about a lot because their first call is going to be Gus Malzahn. Malzahn had already flirted with Arkansas. He did in 2017 when he was at Auburn, or at least Jimmy Sexton did, to get him a bigger contract at Auburn, get him that big buyout. But the way Malzahn has talked about being in Orlando and being at UCF, I don't know why he would leave. He's living in South Florida. He's got grandchildren now. He talks about loving being around his grandkids. The weather's great in South Florida. He can recruit South Florida really well. They're in the Big Ten, so it's a Power 5 job now. So, it gets cold in Fayetteville in the winter. It gets really cold. It snows. So he's from Arkansas. He loves that job, but I don't think he would go. I think the name to watch in this one is Malzahn's former protege, Rhett Lashley, Arkansas native. I believe he was with Malzahn when Malzahn was the OC at Arkansas.
I'll look and see.
Way back in the day, he may have been a GA, I think. But another Arkansas native, you look at what he's done at SMU. They are fun to watch. I think Arkansas needs somebody that's going to bring in a fun offense like Kendall Briles did. And SMU hasn't had a great defense, but you got to consider they're not getting the best athletes. They're getting, especially since they were left out of going to the Big 12, they're getting the bottom of the top tier athletes in Texas. I think he could recruit better at Arkansas than he can at SMU. I know he's not in Dallas or in the Metroplex out in Fayetteville, but that SEC badge, it means a lot. I think Lashley would do really, really good there. He'd bring a fun offense. They wouldn't be fun to play. I know that. And he's shown he sticks to the run game. He's built some tough teams at SMU. They've pulled off some big wins. They've been competitive against some big teams. Oklahoma this year, they played them close for almost that entire game. I really think this is Rhett Lashley's job.
You mentioned Lashley here. Obviously, like you talked about, he played quarterback under Gus in high school at Shiloh Christian, and then was the quarterback from 2002 to 2004 at Arkansas. So, I mean, this is a guy that is a backup. I mean, he was on the roster. So, but you talk about a guy that, look, and I want to get to this because there's a couple things to this. So let's talk about Rhett Lashley. The only thing that I could see playing into this, SMU has some serious deep pockets as they get ready to make the move to the ACC.
Absolutely.
If they want to keep him, because you're going to be able to compete with Rhett Lashley and SMU in the ACC. And they're going to pitch that. Like they're going to pitch, hey, look, that automatic qualifying, you got a better shot winning in the ACC than you do in Arkansas in the SEC. That's a fair point. I did want to get to this because this is a really good question. Ken Hendrick says, in all seriousness, who are they going to hire that's actually better than Pittman that wants this job? Well, this is the problem with this, man. Arkansas is a program that, as much as, like you said, they probably need to move on, you can't just keep resetting it. And they have just had to continue to hit that reset button. And I hate bad
hires too. Well, Bobby Petrino was a great hire. He ended so poorly.
Crazy. That could not have been foreseen.
Chad Morris. Awful hire. Again, that could have been foreseen either. I mean, he was great coordinator, great OC at Clemson, had marginal success at SMU because they were pretty much a basement dweller. Nobody talked about it. He got them to a bowl game. And then he gets the job and just fell flat on his face. But Arkansas, it's such a weird job. It's a weird place in the SEC landscape because it's not as sexy as Oklahoma or Texas. You're kind of out there by yourself. You're almost in the Midwest. You
don't have great recruiting either. The state is not a great for recruiting ground either.
No,
so.
And you talk about you have to go into Texas and compete with Texas and Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Go to Louisiana, compete with LSU, Alabama, and Auburn. They recruit hard in Louisiana too. So it's a weird place. It's really hard to win there. You got to have somebody that's a really good recruiter. That could be what hurts Lashley too there. He's not renowned. He's not really known for recruiting, but he can scheme up an offense.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good point. Then Ken Hendricks brings also, what about Sean Clark, Kurt Signetti? Maybe. It's just, I don't know. And this would be huge. If he did, and he brings that quarterback they have there with him, that would be really, really big. But hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we do come back, we're going to be talking about two of the biggest games of that Week 11 slate. Well, I want to go on a rant about what it really means to be emotional in college football, not whatever happened in the post game against Michigan. That made me want to throw up. And then we're going to talk Georgia Ole Miss. That was very interesting. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell Titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
Back here in the crowded booth, we appreciate it whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or you're listening after the fact where we get our podcast feeds, or on the radio with our partners WQEE. We appreciate that as well. Bryce Koon, Will Manis, Ralph Leary. He hasn't texted me yet, Will, which means he's not even dropped the UPS truck off at the distribution center yet. I mean, this man, he better have tomorrow off.
He's earning that $175K a day.
He is earning the $175K a day. Let's talk about this one. Michigan, not figuratively, literally runs away from Penn State, Will. I've got some thoughts on this, and it's going to come out. And when we talk about our top four, and when we talk about our one, big storyline coming out of the weekend that I want to discuss with you, your thoughts on this football game. If you like offense, I don't think you should have watched this football game. If you like modern day offense, if you like running the football, that's fine. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards with good days. Your thoughts on this football game, what it meant to you?
I enjoyed watching Michigan's offense run the ball. Penn State's not so much. Penn State was anemic. There's Ralph.
Hey,
yeah, he's alive. He's alive. I said it on Wednesday's show. I picked Penn State to win outright. I thought, coming back home, getting Michigan at home would help them a lot, kind of get that offense going. They looked bad on offense against Ohio State. I kind of chalked that up to being the biggest road test for Drew Aller. Thought when he got back home that he'd be able to move the ball and put up some points for him, but didn't happen. And I think that's that's how good Michigan is defensively than Penn State potentially could be offensively. And I talked, before on Wednesday's show, I pointed out Drew Aller, 20 touchdowns, 1 interception. He takes care of the ball. I don't have the stats pulled up. I don't remember if he had a turnover or not.
He took care of the ball in this one. He just didn't do much else other than that. Yeah.
I mean, Michigan swallowed up Penn State, did it whatever they wanted. And Penn State, they look like a Gus Malzahn Auburn team. They've got a championship level
defense just
and an offense that can't even score 20 points. Can't even give the defense a break. And credit to Michigan. They did a really good job. They saw that. They knew that, and they just kept wearing them down. J.J. McCarthy threw 8 passes?
He was 7. So, Jay, the stats on this: McCarthy was 7 of 8 for 60 yards.
And it's 2023, not 1923.
He can't be a Heisman finalist. He just can't.
No, not with a performance like that. I mean, but they did what they had to win.
Yeah,
they did what they had to win. Without Jim Harbaugh, I mean, I'll let you rant about that post-game interview. I watched it and I didn't know what was going on. Honestly, I mean, the strangest post-game interview I've ever seen.
Well, look, I mean, it's Monday, so people have been able to see what happened in this football game. There's no point. Michigan just ran the ball at will, did whatever they wanted. Penn State's fired their offensive coordinator. If James Franklin wants
rightfully so.
If James Franklin wants to get to the next level, they've got to find a way to do something. Let's just talk about this post game. Will, when you cheat, you don't get to just come on camera.
This is great.
There we go. Will's plurring.
Just out of camera, out of focus.
When you cheat, no one's going to feel sorry for you. And it really, really felt like that. I'll just go to myself here. So you can. There we go. When you cheat, like you don't just get to come on camera and just pretty much do whatever in the world you want. Like, just pretty much say, I mean, J.J. McCarthy literally was almost in tears crying because he said, I just missed the guy. You saw him probably 4 hours ago. Like, that is the most boneheaded, wild thing I have ever seen on live television. And look, I'm sure that Michigan's offensive coordinator is a good coach. And I'm sure that he, would get looked at for potentially other jobs. But the idea that you were the victim in this is completely backwards to me. Like, I don't understand how in the world Michigan fans and this Michigan team is going to turn this into now everyone's against us. Like, I think it was, it's Michigan versus everybody. And then everyone tweeting bet, like all this stuff. I mean, the Big Ten loves this stuff. They've got Michigan versus everybody and Ohio State versus the world. Although none of them, I think, can beat a team out of the SEC. So, I think that, look, well, when we look at this, that was the most bizarre thing I had ever seen. Like,
no doubt.
Crazy. Yes, it's an emotional win, but like to get up there and literally act like Jim Harbaugh was dead. Like they act like he had died and they freaked out about it and then turned around and just like, we did this for him. Like you cheated. Like, no, I don't know. That's the thing. And like, whether you think it's cheating or not, like you broke a rule that it's a rule. It's not someone got hurt. Like we've seen that. We've seen, teams that there was no win one for the Gipper type of speech. I mean, this was just absolutely nuts to me. I don't get that. We don't have to get into the sign stealing conversation. I just think the behavior of Michigan afterwards, it's going to make them the most hated team the rest of the way in college football.
Yeah, it's getting old being the victim. It's getting old. I mean, everybody knows how good they are. They're filled with 4- and 5-star players.
Yeah,
2-3 deep at every position. So they're going to be good. They're going to win, and they've got really good coaches. Harbaugh's instilled a really strong culture. I think that showed in this game with him not being there and then kind of gutting it out. I think if they wanted to, they could have ran it up on Penn State if they really wanted to. But I think they were playing not to lose. But it's just. Don't play the victim because you're still a good team. You didn't have to cheat. You didn't have to, what it'll come out eventually, I guess, what really happened, what it really was. Cause I still don't really understand what it is, how Harbaugh didn't know what was happening. Like,
well, let's get it right. He knew what was happening. And I'll tell you this too, if you're a head coach, you have to take responsibility for everything 100%. That happens in your program.
I said, so when it first came out, at the minimum, he's going to get hit with lack of institutional control. That's blanket NCAA punishment. But
yeah,
it's bizarre. Stop playing the victim. You're still good. It's not like you're like Colorado. If you had a team full of transfers and came out of nowhere and we're doing this, it would be one thing. But
you're good. Like I don't think you even had to do this. Like that's the thing. You're a good football team. Now. I think they're a good football team. I think they're a tier 1 football team. We'll talk about, this is a great question too. It's gonna cycle up again. Will, like the conversations of Harbaugh to the NFL. I think the rumor mill will start again with this.
I think after seeing how they played and the reaction to his suspension, if he leaves, he will never be welcome back on that campus again. Because I don't think that they're going to let him go. I think Michigan, as an athletic department, as an institution, knows what they have. They have, Dr. Bob said it, probably the best football coach, maybe not best head coach, whatever, maybe the best football coach, best CEO, leader, whatever. I think they know that they possibly have the best right now. So I don't think they're gonna serve him his walking papers. But if he leaves, oh my gosh, it would be anarchy because all those players, all those coaches, they're bought into him and bought into that program. And it would be maybe the most devastating head coaching departure ever if he went back to the NFL. And it may, like I said, he played quarterback at Michigan. He's an alumnus. He may not ever be welcome back on that campus ever again if he leaves.
Yeah, no, I think that's I don't know. Like when I thought about when you were starting to say, I was like, really? And then you explained it there, and it makes sense. Like you flirted year after year with this, and the fan base kind of grew tired of it, and now you actually go after this.
They're so bought in.
And look, to your point in that, like I think you could see a Michigan program that falls off, like that falls off because you're not going to find a coach that's going to be able to do what he did there. And he rebuilt the image.
Their whole team would transfer. They'd have to start from scratch. And it would take a really, really good coach to get them back anywhere close to where they are now.
Yeah, and what they are is a championship caliber program. I think so. So let's take a look at this next game, Will. I don't know how much you got to watch of this football game. We had it on in the press box in between scoring touchdowns in Tiger Stadium because no one played defense in that game. One team played defense in this game. Georgia blast Ole Miss. Will, this is where I'll sit with this, and I know exactly the pictures that are going to be pulled off of my Instagram and Facebook when I say this. This is where I sit with this. The conversation about Georgia not playing anybody's kind of got to stop. Like, yes, Kentucky's not a great football team. Florida's not a great football team. Ole Miss is a pretty dang good football team. And you just went and beat
Missouri's a really good football team.
Missouri's a really, really good football team. And in back-to-back weeks, you just beat two really, really good football teams. And, you mentioned this last week. You didn't look great last week against Ole Miss or against Missouri. You straight up dominated this football game. Will, this is the national championship caliber team. This is the three-peat version. I'm telling you, man, December the 2nd is going to be so much fun. Like SEC title game is going to be wild. But Georgia, your thoughts on this matchup and what you saw?
I hate to say I told you so, but I kind of did because I thought that Georgia would kind of just roll over Ole Miss. I didn't watch all that much of it, but I watched enough to see what I thought I would see.
Mm-hmm.
This was just an awful, awful matchup for Ole Miss. Awful matchup. They struggle against the run. That's been their story under Lane Kiffin his entire tenure there. They struggle against the run. And Georgia had a breakout day rushing. Kendall Milton looked the healthiest he's looked all year. Dejan Edwards probably played his best game of the year. They ran all over him. I'm not going to say it. You know what I want to say, but I'm not going to say it.
Will they average 8.6 yards per carry on the ground? That's stupid.
Against the top 10 team.
Yeah. And against the defense, too. And I will say this, too, because I talked about this. Ole Miss is not the Ole Miss defense of like 2 years ago.
No, they're much improved.
They're a top 40, top 30 defense in the country. And but 35 carries.
The run. They don't have the bodies in the front seven to especially up against Georgia. I mean, and Georgia steamroll. And I say it every week, and I'm getting tired of hearing it too. But Kirby Smart, I don't know what he does. I don't know what he does inside those walls, but man, he gets those players up for every game. There was no doubt that they weren't going to be up for Lane Kiffin and his antics. And they just rolled over him. Lad McConkey had a big day. Brock Bowers.
Oh my gosh. Well, the kid's a machine. Like he is a machine.
He's ridiculous. I'm telling you, if I was an NFL GM, if I was the GM of the Bears and had Carolina's #1 pick, I think I would take Brock Bowers. I'm not kidding.
Now, that being said, Falcons, please don't take him because Arthur Smith will still draw up plays for Jonnu Smith. I sent you
Jonnu Smith is
Jonnu
still
will still be tight in one.
He'll be throwing passes to
John Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Just miss me. No, you're right.
Awful.
I mean, look, you talk about a guy that looked 100%. Like, I mean, the cuts he was making on the field were absolutely ridiculous. Well, Georgia ran 35 times for 300 yards. Carson Beck, he had an interception, but if you go look at the interception, not really his fault. It's just kind of one of those weird plays that bounced off the receiver's hands. 18 of 25, 306, 2 touchdowns. And Carson Beck also ran for another 30 yards. I mean, look,
he'll be in New York. He and Jaden Daniels will be in New York.
You think Carson Beck deserves to be in New York? Is that kind of where you sit with it?
I don't know. I don't know how you don't get him there. I don't know how you don't get him there.
It's fair.
Georgia dominated. I mean, 300 rushing yards. You know, you said his name, so I'll say it. Josh Pate says all the time, padlock stat. You run for 300 yards, you're probably going to beat whoever you're playing. Doesn't matter who it is. If you run for 300 on, you're probably going to beat them. But I want to talk about what Lane Kiffin said after the game. I really like how he handled himself after the game. You know, a lot of coaches, they're like, well, we didn't play very well. No. He said, we got to coach better. I'm not going to blame them. That's a really good team over there. That's probably the national champions over there. We didn't play well. We got to coach better. We got to recruit better because we don't have the guys that they have. So it's on the coaching staff. You know, Lane Kiffin, I think, has really matured as a head coach the last 2-3 years. When he got to Ole Miss, you know, we thought he was hot shot punk. He said on CBS before the game, "Hope you got your popcorn for that Alabama game," when they proceeded to get beat by 4.
Yeah, that's really bad.
He's grown a lot. I think somebody said in the comments earlier, would he go to A&M? I don't think so. He went down that road last year, had his name out there for the Auburn job. Don't think he goes to A&M. I still think he ultimately has his sights set on the NFL, but he knows what he's got to do. He's got to be better in college to get an NFL look, and he's at a spot where he can do it because I think he fits that culture really well, that kind of frat boy culture that is Ole Miss, and he's leaned into that. He's leaned into that part of his personality, built a really good program that they're going to be tough, top 15 every year, but he's got to get some athletes on defense if he wants to win a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have a good offense year in, year out. Going back to Georgia, the calls for Mike Bobo's job, and it's spoiled Georgia fans. They're doing that. Will
I don't get it.
I don't get it. 311 passing yards, 300 rushing yards. That's literally balance. Literally balance. Like, I don't know, man. We're going to talk about our top 4 after this. I don't know how this is not the #1 team in the country. Like, I just don't. I don't know how. We'll see.
Well,
I don't think you have them #1, but I don't actually. We'll see. You do. We'll see. We'll see.
Mine's totally different than it has been the last couple of weeks. My eyes have been opened.
Yeah, mine have been too. and mine probably has a personal vendetta for one team that's not in there. So
Oh,
you hadn't seen mine though. That's fine.
nope.
No, but just kind of looking at this, I mean, Georgia averaged 10 yards per play. Like, I mean,
dude, Mike Bobo's terrible. I don't know what to tell you. He's awful.
It's just crazy. And this is what I'll say about this too. A lot of fans, and look, I interact with a lot of these fans because they can't stand their rival. Well, it's easy to win when you have great players. How do you think they got there? Like, how do you think that this program got to where they were? It's great coaching. It's elite coaching.
Mhm.
Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches in the country.
You said you talk to a lot of rival fans, hate their rivals, whatever. I've taken a lot of heat in the last couple of weeks for talking about how good Georgia is and how good Carson Beck is. It's pretty funny taking some heat from other Auburn fans, but
it's the truth. I mean, you're not. It is. They
true.
just
I try not to be biased. They're just really good.
Yeah. No, they are.
And they've owned Auburn my entire lifetime. So,
well, especially under Kirby Smart, they've only lost to Auburn one time, I believe, under Kirby Smart. I believe so. 2017 regular season.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was the coldest football game I've ever been to in my life. Probably because I was standing literally in the sky at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Hey,
I was warm. I don't know what you're talking about being cold. I was warm.
I was freezing to death. Freezing to death that day. Hey, when we come back, we're going to go into our top four. We're going to have a storyline that kind of goes within that as we round out the show, but we'll catch you here in about a minute and a half. Something like that. We'll see. Hey, everyone. Bryce Koon here with the Crowded Booth, and I'm excited to partner with Milton and Drew McCluskey as they get on their new venture, the Cajun Cousins Company. It's an all-stop shop for some of the best food and atmosphere entertainment that you're going to be able to have, especially this fall as college football is right around the corner. What is Cajun Cousins Company? Well, Milt decided to start this business back in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where they're based out of. Drew initially joined him after spending some time with the Saints, but they offer catered Cajun delicacies such as crawfish boils and Aunt Dottie's jambalaya. They bring everything and they can set up anywhere. Look, folks, they're passionate about giving people a reason to gather and to get to the culture that they love so much. They're expanding that brand to the low country of South Carolina, the upstate area, and other areas of the Southeast. So look, if you're going to throw that tailgate party or you're going to have a big gathering, reach out to Cajun Cousins Company today over at CajunCousinsCO.com to get that quote. Tell them the Crowded Booth sent you. We can't wait to see what they have in store this fall. All right, we're going to talk about our top four, Will. We're just going to go ahead and unveil it. And I'll go first in this, and then because it's crazy. It's not, I will say, it's different. So we're going to have some good things to talk about here. I've got Georgia, Washington, Oregon, Ohio State. Ooh. And this is based off of, for me, what four teams, like the top four teams that I think can win a championship this year. I think Georgia's in there. I think Alabama's got a better shot than Michigan to me. Man, I'm just telling you, and we're going to, this is our storyline conversation is, can a Big Ten team win the title this year? And I'll sit with this. I think Washington's a really, really good football team. We've talked about this. I think Oregon might be better than them on a neutral field, and we're going to potentially be able to see that at the end of the season. If the national championship's Georgia-Oregon, first off, imagine the storylines from Dan Lanning's first game when they got beat 45-3 to a championship game a year later. Like, that would be really cool.
How about Bo Nix getting his, sixth shot at Georgia?
74th shot. Luckily, the game's not going to be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which Bo Nix does not like to play at. That's really, really good. We're going to be serving out band hammers here if we don't calm down with that conversation.
Dr. Bob, I didn't even watch that game. So
nobody did, man. Nobody did.
If I didn't watch it, it was
If
bad.
Sicko's committee over here didn't watch it, nobody watched it. But no, I'm going Georgia, Washington, Oregon, Ohio State. I think Ohio State has the best roster. I think they've got the best roster in the Big Ten when it comes to just construction. I like their defense. I like the weapons they have offensively. The thing that is missing for them is elite quarterback play. And you're seeing how much they're missing it because their quarterback from last year is lighting the NFL up, like head and shoulders the rookie of the year.
Hey, he's lighting my fantasy team up too.
It's crazy. it's crazy. So that's my top four. I'm going Georgia, Washington, Oregon, Ohio State. Will, we roll with yours here. Talk to the people about what you got going on.
Yeah, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon. I don't think you can argue what Georgia's done, especially in recent weeks. They've come into their own, and I think have really separated themselves. I got Michigan too. I think that they're better than Ohio State. I think they're going to beat Ohio State in a couple weeks. You said it. Ohio State likes quarterback play. To beat an elite defense, you got to have elite quarterback play. Seen it with Alabama for the last decade. The only teams that beat them are ones that have elite quarterback play, and Ohio State doesn't have that. I don't think Michigan beats them. And then I have Oregon number 4. I'm dropping Washington. I'm going the common opponent. I lost what I was going to say. It's the whatever Oregon 4 because they absolutely whooped Utah on the road a couple weeks ago, and Washington really struggled with them at home.
7-point win, I think it was. Was it 35-28?
It was really back and forth game, really fun game, and surprising that Utah could put up that many points. But I thought Oregon probably better than Washington all year. I think if Dan Lanning just kicked some field goals, they would have won. They wouldn't have had to try the last second field goal.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping we get to see this game again. I wanted to see those two go up against each other again. That's it. No Washington. They're just out. I would put, if we want to go to 6 and 7, I'd put Texas and then put Alabama. If we want to go down that far.
Yeah, I've got Alabama. I would probably take Alabama as the 5th team. I think Texas is in there too. Dr. Bob gives us his top 4. The team that shall not be named, that's going to be the team over in Athens. He's got Michigan 2, Free Shoes University, which is Florida State. For those 3, and Saban. Florida State's flying under the radar.
State again. I forgot about them again.
Florida State is flying under the radar. And
I think that's 2 weeks in a row or 2 of the last 3 weeks. I've just completely forgotten about them. They struggled against Miami. But Miami, they're still good.
They
got talent. They got talent.
And look, Florida State has got to get healthy. If they get that full complement of receivers back, if they get everyone healthy, it's a championship level team. And you mentioned this, Will, when I was really high on Florida State. You said, "No, Bryce, let's keep in mind, Florida State played their big games early in the season. Now all these other teams are going to get the publicity, and that's exactly what we've kind of seen happen. It's going to be interesting.
And other teams get the chance to be better, to get better, and I think we've seen that in the ACC this year. I think just about every team's gotten better every week. Maybe not that team in Atlanta because they're just so inconsistent. So it's hard to tell if they've gotten better or not.
Georgia State, Clark, Atlanta.
The other.
Okay.
What they call it?
Georgia, Clayton State.
They call it Georgia Tech University. Is that what the recruits call it?
Polytechnic.
University of Georgia Tech.
Kennesaw State's in Marietta, Will. Right. No, you're right. I think, and let's get to this right here. He goes, Jonesy says y'all are sleeping on Bama. I don't think we are. Like, I think Bama. I already said it. Georgia and Alabama is going to be probably the game of the year. Like, I don't know if we're going to get a better game.
It's another quarterfinal.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see. So Ralph is joined the show here. We're just going to give him with a UPS hat on. And Ralph, is this your updated top 4?
Yeah, I just made it. Actually.
He's repping the brand right there.
They don't sponsor us. What if I wanted FedEx to sponsor us, Ralph? How would that,
I don't think you could.
Will's got the DHL cup he's rocking over there. It's the DHL.
You're talking about absolute nobodies.
Listen, if you get FedEx to sponsor the show, then you have to support Arthur Smith. Have to.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Not doing that. Ralph, real quick, you got Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Ohio State. Any explanation on you want to give us on those?
Yeah, I made a comment last Thursday or last Wednesday that depending on the outcome of that Georgia game, if they blew out Ole Miss, I was on moving to 1. So, great performance by them Monday or on Saturday, and Michigan did what they've done all year, just win. So I still leave them at 2, but then Washington's just I think I haven't seen enough from Ohio State yet. I mean, they're good, but I don't think they're the best team in the Big Ten. So
fair enough. This is a great question we can get to right here. If Bama wins, does Georgia make the playoffs?
Depends how
no,
bad it is.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Dr. Bob does know who won best bets again. I don't want to talk about it. Let's get to our final. We'd have storyline segment here, and this is Ralph. You can join the conversation because I think over the next 10 minutes or so, can a Big Ten team win the title, guys? I'm going to lead it off here. I don't think so. I don't think that there is an elite quarterback in the Big Ten. that can, Will, you mentioned it, beat the Alabamas, beat the Georgias. Florida State's got a really good defense. Oregon's got a way better defense than we necessarily think it is. I don't think that a Big Ten team can necessarily go out and win the national title because I don't think there's an elite quarterback that can get them over the hump. I think it's going to be some really, really good football teams. But overall, like when we look at this, I think Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, Oregon, Washington. I think, and that's what 5 teams I just named. 5 teams that I think are way, way better. I'm not looking at the comments either. I'm very, very focused in
Please
on
don't.
I'm
part of
about
the
to time
segment.
them out. That's what's about to happen.
It's just it's wild. So let's get to this. Will, you start us off here. Do you think a Big Ten team can win the national championship?
Yes, I think Michigan can win the national championship. But it's not going to be an easy road.
It's not conventional, maybe.
Yeah, they're going to have to beat Ohio State, which is always going to be tough, even without that elite quarterback play. And then they got to beat the team who we're not allowed to say on the show in the Big Ten championship game that as much as we make fun of them, their defense is really, really good. They cause problems for any team that they play. Now, granted, they play in probably the worst division in college football, the Big Ten West, but they're shutting teams out. I mean, they had a shutout this weekend. They gave up 7 2 weeks ago. I mean, they're really good. So they could give Michigan fits. So it'll be tough. And if I just said, can they beat elite defense? Can they beat Alabama? They may not have to play Alabama. So that might be to their advantage. Depends on how the cards fall. But short answer, can a Big Ten team win? Yes. And I think the only one is Michigan. Ohio State, even if they went out, win the Big Ten, I think they lose in the first round. Because you've got to be elite to be in the playoffs and win in the playoffs.
My thing with it is that, look, when you see this Michigan team, like, okay, they play great defense, like smothering defense, but Penn State's offense is not great. Like, what happens if they go up against an electric offense that has a good defense? Like, I don't think Washington has a good enough defense to beat them necessarily. I think they're a better, like, I think Washington's offense will give them trouble. I think Oregon is probably in the category that could give them trouble. Florida State potentially, because it's a veteran quarterback and a veteran
Georgia definitely would.
Like, let's just talk about it. Like, straight up, Georgia and Michigan play this Saturday. Like, I think Georgia wins.
This Saturday? I think Georgia would win, but it'll be close. I think you give Kirby Smart a month to prepare, it'll look like it did a couple years ago in Miami, where they just kind of stomp them. Because you give a good coach a month to prepare for anybody, they can beat anybody. So that's what makes it tough. Having 3 weeks off, almost a month off, 20 days, however long it is. That's why the playoff is so tough. And the elite coaches, they're there every year. They can make adjustments. That's why you can't bet against Nick Saban and Kirby Smart in the postseason, because you give those guys too much time to figure out how to beat whoever they're playing, no matter who it is.
Yeah. I want to get to this comment right here. Florida State is this year's TCU. I don't think so. I don't know. I think Florida State is built way more to last than TCU is. Yes. And I don't think that TCU is just –
and that's no slight at TCU. No. They were a great story. They were a really, really good team. I think they got hot last year and just rode that momentum all the way to the national title game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Dr. Bob says right here, the depth of Michigan's defensive line is the best in America. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like all of these things are true. I think if they played Saturday, Georgia wins. And I'm not saying blowout fashion. I think it's a really, really close football game. The problem, though, is what you just mentioned. When you end your season on December the 4th, let's say Georgia wins the SEC title, Michigan beats Ohio State, and then beats the team that shall not be named the Big Ten championship. And now you have a date set for around New Year's. You got 30 days. You get so many extra practices. I mean, look, it's just – I'm not saying – because I don't want to sit up here and say that just because it hasn't happened yet, it won't. I just think that – I just don't – when it comes down to crunch time, I don't know that J.J. McCarthy can go and lead the defense in a 2-minute drill or lead the offense in a 2-minute drill against a good defense. We haven't seen it. So, maybe it happens, but there's nothing for me that I've been able to see it. Maybe we see it in 2 weeks, Will, when they play Ohio State. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they've got to get through that game. I mean, but you look at Georgia, they've clinched the East, but they can't lose. I don't know what to think about their Ooh, against Tennessee this week. I don't really know what to think about that game. It's always hard to play in Knoxville, but is Tennessee going to be up for it?
And Tennessee just got boat raced, man.
Yeah, my point is Georgia has an easier path than Michigan does. Michigan's got two big games left. Georgia kind of really only has one that you think that is really going to give them trouble, which would be the SEC championship game. Short answer, can a Big Ten team win? Yes, if it's Michigan. No, if it's Ohio State.
Hey, look, don't sleep on clean old-fashioned hate, baby. That's a night game inside Bobby Dodd. They switched that from the nooner on ABC to a 7:30 kickoff local time.
Hey, must be nice. Must be nice because
what you got, Auburn, Alabama, 3:30?
Iron Bowls apparently can only be at 3:30.
I got LSU A&M at 11 a.m. over Central Time, dude.
Hey,
people are not. There's going to be 10 people in the stands.
It's like the great Edo once said, put a little something in your coffee, get going.
It's just wild, absolutely wild. But hey, no, I think we had a good show. Ralph had to dip out. He said that he just wanted to pop in and say that. But look, we're going to take a look at our best bets on Wednesday. Mine couldn't have gone more wrong in the fact that I did take
I think
Houston.
Ralph's was worst.
I had some pretty bad bets on Saturday. I had some pretty bad ones.
Ralph had Oklahoma State. Were they minus 3.5?
My God.
They only scored 3 points.
I want UCF and Georgia Tech to play each other again, because that would just be. Hey, did you see, Will, by the way, before we get out of here, that they got projection 24/7 Sports was projecting Auburn, Georgia Tech, and Tampa. Would you go
if we're going to be on location?
We might have.
We're taking a trip.
We might have to be. We might have to. Hey, look, we do appreciate everyone tuning in, everyone watching. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, whether you're watching on Facebook. Good crowd tonight as well. And thanks for the comments to Jonesy. Ralph couldn't take it, man. What can Brown do for you? He didn't like that too much. But hey, we appreciate you. Make sure you pay attention to the podcast feeds. We're going to be live again on Wednesday night previewing week number 12 and really kind of reacting to the playoff. The slate isn't super exciting in week number 12, but it's college football, and it's that home stretch. Upsets do happen. We're going to take a long look at the Chattanooga Mocs against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And, Will, we're going to take a look potentially. One of our games to pick might actually be Auburn, New Mexico State. Honest to God, might be one of them.
If you want a full preview, I think you and I are going to talk about it tomorrow. Yeah. We hadn't talked about Auburn in a while. Things are looking up. I wanted to talk about them.
Yeah, and look, then really, I'll say this, preview it. The recruit the Waller kid they just got, that kid's absolute freak, and that's a really, really big pickup.
Bring your coats.
Florida also, man. I don't know.
I don't know what to think about Florida.
They're another.
You said it earlier about Arkansas. They can't keep resetting. I think Florida's in the same boat. They can't keep resetting. I think Napier's a really good recruiter. He's a really good recruiter. Give him some time. I think. I mean, it's only year 2, so still early.
We'll see. It's still early, but it's getting late for us, especially you folks over there on the East Coast. About to approach that 9:30 hour. We're going to talk Auburn tomorrow. We'll talk college football again. The Georgia Tech versus Syracuse. The battle for bowl eligibility between just the two of the most mid programs in the country. Cannot wait for you to tune in on Thursday night. Syracuse actually looked pretty good in their win over Pitt this past weekend. Dino Babers against Brent Key. Who thought that would be a game day type of matchup? But we're going to talk about it because that's what the people demand. Bryce Koon, Will Mannis, Ralph Leary with the cameo. We'll talk to you next time here on the Crowded Booth. Make sure to subscribe, like the video. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. Coming on the Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.